Welcome back to Biz in 30. My name's Jim Grund, and I'm co-founder of Biz in 30. Please know that our podcast is non-sponsored. Our guests do not pay to appear, nor do we pay our guests. Now today, I will be your co-host for a very special episode featuring Mr. Paul Cimino, operator of Building Blocks, an educational store in Lubbock, Texas. Jimbo, tell us a little bit more about Mr. Cimino.
I'm really proud to have Paul with us this morning. I met Paul many moons ago in Santa Fe, New Mexico, when he was an outside sales rep for his family company, CNC Distributors. It didn't take me long, and I learned Paul was a real practical joker, and he also has a great sense of humor. As life would have it, many years later, Paul and I ended up working for the same divisional office of a large company in Denver, Colorado. He was also a top sales rep there, and he continued his shenanigans, and it made things very lively. I have to admit, I'm not proud of it. I have to admit, I did hire Paul, but he turned out quite good. Paul is married to a lovely woman, and they have 4 children. They have 10 grandchildren. And from what I understand, Jimmy, something in the water down there in Lubbock is what produces all that stuff. Paul left the corporate world to become an entrepreneur, and he's been quite successful. I couldn't be more proud of Paul Cimino, and I want to welcome him to our podcast this morning. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Jimbo.
Paul.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you all having me on.
Well, it's great to have you. Paul, tell us a little bit about your business, like when you got started, your customer demographics, show and tell, maybe some of your hot toy items. And I did have one question about what makes a toy educational. So if you could fill us in, that'd be great.
That's a good question, Jimmy. We founded this company, started putting it together in late 1996, opened our doors in October of 1997. Mostly at the behest of my wife. She's the brilliance. She continually complained that Lubbock needed a specialty toy store, something different, something that has absolutely great play value, but you also have to have some developmental value, some aspects of the toy that add to the child's life, that enriches that child's life. Back in 1996, I was on the road 3 out of 4 weeks. I married Franny, took on a couple of kids in 95. Fast forward to 96, my boss was visiting from Toledo for quarterly evaluations, and what started out as a pep talk quickly turned aggressive. And he stopped me and said I needed to talk to my wife, blah, blah, blah. A long drive from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Lubbock, Texas, about 6 hours. I did a few laps on my beads on the way down, found a cell in the big city of Fort Sumner, New Mexico, and said, I think it's time to quit. And my wife said, thank God, I've been praying for this. Had no idea what I was going to do. By the way, she was 8 months pregnant with our 3rd child. So anyway, I took some time off. Like most men, I had no idea what kids' toys were about. And I'm helping with the kids, watching little children's programming. And I thought, we can do better. A lot of this stuff is just gross. It has no redeeming value. So I piled up. Boy, it seems like a million years ago. I piled up at the reference desk at Texas Tech because nobody had computers really back then, and had them give me everything on toys, games, and hobbies that we could find, and realized I could make a living in Lubbock. For a long time, I made more money working for people like Jim, but now I work for my wife, and good Lord, the stress. I wish I could go back to working for Jim. No, really, it's been a wonderful life. We opened in October of 97. To this day, I have not set an alarm to get up to go to work. And that means, this time of year, I may be sliding into work at 8:30, 9:30. October through December, I'm going into work 4:30 or 5:30. So it's a little different. And now,
Is that 4:30 or 5? Is that 4:30? Excuse me, Paul. Is that 4:30 or 5:30 p.m.?
AM, Jimbo, dark 30, as we used to call it on the road. And not to be altruistic, I'm here to make a buck. And I don't make any apologies for that. But you got to add something to the community. You got to bring something back. And I'm sorry, in today's world, it's gone from gross toys to evil toys. There are large corporations out there grooming our children, guys.
Paul.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this week the International Toy Fair is being held in New York City. And the statistics I've read say the annual U.S. toy sales they're almost $100 billion industry, with almost 77% made in China. Some new news indicates toy maker Hasbro is cutting its China production by 10% due to tariffs. Where are most of your suppliers located? Is this tariff business, the 20%, going to be affecting your pricing?
Most of my toys come out of China also. 75-80% would be about right. And we actively try to find German and American toys, North American and European toys. But U.S. and Germany seem to be my manufacturers of choice. Will these tariffs affect us? Absolutely. One of my top 3 vendors, they're a German company, but they manufacture in China, and their North American headquarters are in Canada. So I'm wondering, they just announced at a pre-meeting at Toy Fair that I believe as of May 1st, they're going up across the board 20%. If I put my interests in front of my principles, and God forbid I do that, I'm against the tariffs. But if I stay true to my principles, we've got to do something to force manufacturing back to this country. I'm not a big fan of tariffs in theory, but I'm not sure what game we can play to get manufacturing back in the U.S. other than the tariffs. So the 2001 downturn, we survived the 2008 crash, and we survived the so-called lockdowns of 2020 pretty well. I've also been blessed with great mentors from my dad. He was in the car business, and I worked everything in the car business except sales. Never thought I was going to be in sales. Worked every job you can imagine in the hotel restaurant business. And I've had good mentors from Ken Whitney, who is my sales manager at C&C Distributors, to Jim, to the people I worked for after that, at Spartan Chemical. They were very good mentors.
Paul, you explained now the events that led up to you starting Building Blocks. And my question is, what else made you make that move? Now, I know what made me make that move to go 30 years in my own business. And I know Jimmy probably knows what motivated him to do it. But inside, what made you? We have a lot of people who may be making this move, and they want to know, am I crazy?
Are you crazy? Probably. If you're thinking about starting your own business, again, good advice from my dad. There's never a good time to start a business. Never. Just like there's never a good time to start a family. It always appears that there's more against you than for you. I learn fairly quickly. Sometimes
You do?
I do. If you've got a good 2x4.
There you go.
Again, as you know, Casper, it's about hard work. There was a guy by the name of Dick Grogan that worked with us, Jim, back in the day.
Remember him well. God bless him.
He gave me a little saying on persistence, and I actually gave that to my oldest son, who's now in the car business. And it's about persistence being the biggest element to success. Genius, talent, all of that stuff, that comes in handy. But without persistence, you're going to go nowhere. We see that all the time. I see guys out there that are a lot more talented than me, a lot smarter than me, and it makes me crazy that they're lazy. When you deal with sales training, you know what I'm talking about. Some of the best talkers have some of the poorest work ethic. Give me a guy with a good work ethic, and I can teach him how to sell. So a number of years ago, it's probably been 10 or 15 years ago, Ben and I were laying in bed watching the news, and a Pew Research poll came out that the average 20 to 30-year-old felt it was sexual harassment if they were asked out more than one time by someone other than their partner. And I looked at Franny and I said, tenacity, persistence, that's all I got in my bag of tricks. Once you gave me your number, you were doomed.
Keep at it. Yeah.
I was a fairly successful wrestler, not because I was the biggest or strongest guy, but I just hated to lose. And I knew I could get into better shape than anybody. So just about outworking my competition.
And that, I believe those are 3 keys, persistency, tenacity, and work ethic. And I believe you can add creativity to that one too, which we all know, Paul, you are. Having had years of experience working with you, and it felt more like I was working for you, but nonetheless. The other thing is, in that time period, you mentioned there's a time period between when Fran came and talked to you about starting it and the time you actually said, hey, I'm done. And then after that, until the day you started the business, what kind of preparation did you do to ensure success? Because you're no fool. And I know you were thinking about, how am I going to make this really successful? I know your father was a big influence in your life, and he seemed to be the kind of guy who had a vision. So tell us a little bit about maybe your preparation and your vision.
It's about doing the things the other people won't do, or building the better mousetrap, the widget that nobody else has, the niche that you can carve out in any given market. My dad and his partner got into the janitorial supply business on jumbo rolls. And when are we talking about? 1984, 1985. No one had seen rolls, bigger than your head that were used institutionally. It was a different deal.
You're talking about toilet paper rolls.
Toilet paper rolls, yes. Sorry, janitorial, yeah. And it was a completely different thing. I kind of approached my business that way. I want to do something nobody else is doing. It's important that, I'm 5'5", 170 pounds. I cannot go toe to toe with Mike Tyson. Maybe Jake Paul, but not Mike Tyson. I've always had to punch above my weight, so to speak. So to try to go toe to toe against a Walmart, or back then Toys R Us, would have been stupid. So you use guerrilla tactics. You outservice, build relation. And I know people talk about that a lot, but truly you build relations.
You're very good at that.
I think so. I hope so.
You are.
I really enjoy my customers, and my frustration anymore is upstream with manufacturers, but I still love to come to work. I'd rather be standing at the register or working the floor, talking to customers all day long than anything else.
That's the key to successful retail. And the customer service, the interaction with your customers, it means everything, because that's the difference between you and a Toys R Us or a Walmart.
I watch other retailers. I talk about loving your customer. And it's not like, I need to check on them and see how the kids are, but just those things of total respect. I look at other businesses in our strip center, and I look at owners that'll park right in front of their front door. I park off to the side. I want to leave those best places for my customers. That's loving your customer.
Exactly.
Lou Holtz talks about the customer just wants you to know that you give a damn. Do you care about me? And I do. You got to. You've got to.
Very good. Paul, when you decided to go into toys, was it in a list of 5 different things that you were looking at? I mean, how did you decide that toys was the way you wanted to go?
My wife is incredibly intuitive. She's intuitive to the point of being empathic. And so we make a really good team. I have no feelings. Jim had my heart removed before I went to work for him, had it replaced with a stainless steel pump. My wife is very empathic.
But I did put you in a suit, okay?
You did. You got me out of shorts and into a polyester suit. No, you got me dressed in wool.
Okay, be careful again, because Jimmy is very sensitive when you talk about polyester. I mean,
okay. Where was I? We make a really good team in her empathy and I, and my numbers. If you can't put a number to it, like so many things in life, there are too many variables, I can depend on my wife. What got me into toys was trusting her and then experiencing what the kids were being what was being marketed to my kids. And again, looking around and like I said, I piled up at the reference library at Texas Tech, and I can't remember what the SIC code was for toys, games, and hobbies, but I just had those reference librarians stacking stuff on the desk, 2 or 3 foot high. And I found out that Lubbock, Texas is much more affluent than you might imagine, and also much better educated city than I expected. I moved here in 1992 on a 2-year plan to move back to New Mexico, and quickly fell in love with Lubbock, Texas. You don't fall in love with days like yesterday where we had 45-mile-an-hour sustained winds and the sky is brown with eastern New Mexico flying past. But the people, the business, this is a wonderful place to be.
Tell me about your, picking your location. I was in commercial real estate. We did retail strip shopping centers, and just curious as to how you, chose your location. I'm not that familiar with Lubbock, but What was your thought process on that?
We were originally part of a franchise. To go back to the last question, Jim, when we had decided toys might be the way to go, I picked up either entrepreneur or business startups and started looking through and came across this building blocks. We went and visited. They had a store in a suburb of Dallas, Capel, Texas, pretty affluent suburb. Walked into the store and immediately knew this was what we wanted to do. They were not terribly invasive. They were not terribly expensive. I just hoped I could sit on my hands long enough to not blow up the franchise agreement. And oddly enough, about a year and a half into it, the franchisor came to me and said, if you can live without Beanie Babies, we can live without a royalty. I don't feel like I'm doing anything for you.
That's fantastic.
And they kind of got into the toy business as a hobby. That's one thing we kind of fight a little bit. People think, oh, it's a toy business. It'll be fun. Well, it is, but it's still a business. You're still buying and selling and dealing with government issues, et cetera. Along those lines, more liability in the toy business, legal exposure than in industrial chemicals. Think about that for a few minutes.
Wow.
So that was kind of the path of how we got there.
That's fantastic. That's a great story.
Have you been in the same location for your...
That location, yes. And, I actually manage some commercial real estate for my family also. We've been in the same location for almost 28 years. The franchisor sent down a realtor, broker, consultant type. Oddly enough, the intersection, a strip center that we thought we wanted to be in back in 1997 was about 3 times the price of the place we decided on. Plus, a lot of common area issues that I didn't want to deal with. We're on one of the busiest intersections in Lubbock. Great economics, demographics, number of kids around us. And it's been a good move. It's not the most prestigious location, but it may have been the difference between us making it and not making it that first couple of years.
You had that exposure to the
That's a
road.
key point.
And the lower rent also.
Exactly. That's what I'm referring to. So let me ask you a question. People in our audience may be in the position of leaving the corporate world and going into business for themselves as a business owner, not necessarily in the educational toy business, but as a business owner. What are some of the challenges that you face in your business?
Great question, Jim.
Did you hear that, Jimmy?
I heard that. It was a good one.
The obvious one we all know about it is people coming in undercapitalized. And we were in a position where we didn't have to do any business for the first year, and we could still keep our doors open.
It's fantastic.
The second one that I think a lot of people make, and if you're a government employee looking to find your own business at this point, you're probably not right for the job. Go to work for someone else. I hate to be schmaltzy about it, but I think you really need to pray and discern and see what God wants you to do and where God wants to put you in your life. But the real one, and I've had this happen, is the time commitment. I'm still getting up at 5, 6 o'clock every morning. I'm answering emails. I'm checking social, et cetera, et cetera. The average person is not ready. I don't think they realize how many hours it's going to take to run a small business, especially in this climate. We're very picky on who we hire. So I had a young couple come in and seriously wanted to talk about buying my business about 15 years ago. Their faces absolutely dropped when I talked about 60 hours a week during the off season. The idea that they'd have to work 80 to 100 hours a week during the fourth quarter of the year. I don't think they really believed me. I don't think they understood that. In 2024, I had a key employee leave me in October of 23. In 2024, Penny and I had 4 days off, period. And we were at market. As a matter of fact, a year ago today, we were at Toy Fest West in Vegas, and we had to close the store for a Monday and Tuesday to go do that. And then went to a little family reunion in Colorado in June, and again, had to close the store on a Friday, Saturday for that. Luckily, she's come back to work for me, and that buys me some freedom. I'm very, very picky about who we hire. And this one, people learn some math, not even higher math, just arithmetic. The average college kid walks into my store and says, "Are y'all hiring?" And my first question is, "What's $1 minus 87 cents?" Guys, I've had I've had 6 people that could answer that question quickly and proficiently in the last 12 years. 6.
My God.
Gosh, I believe that.
Now,
That's
granted,
sad.
87's hard. It's a prime number. It's a hard one. True story. This fall, just as school's getting back in, I have a young lady walk in, ask if we're hiring. And so my question is, and there's 2 older gentlemen. By older, I mean like my age, not nearly as old as you guys.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
We were standing there and I asked her, what's $1 minus 87 cents? And her voice went up about 3 octaves. And she says, I don't even know how to do that kind of math. And they busted out laughing and she left in tears. I felt bad. No
Well,
kidding. 2 hours later, I get another one come in. Well, this time I asked her, what's $1 minus 83 cents in case they're working in teams? She looked me in the eye and says, what the F kind of question is that? I said, it's a question you need to be able to answer if you work in my store. Now you can get out of my store.
Yeah.
So I
can't
believe they just put warm bodies in the hole.
We say that's hard to believe, but we're shoppers and we go to the stores, and unless that young person has got to, register in front of her to make change or whatever, they don't know what they're doing, and they even have trouble with that. So I could understand perfectly what you're saying, and it's a sad commentary on our youth of today.
The good news is my kids are kicking ass. I imagine youth are too.
Right.
Because they work hard and they have some sense.
Exactly. That's
Well,
exactly right.
We had a question in here to tell us your keys to continuing long-term success, but I think you pretty much nailed it here with you got to put in the time, you got to dedicate yourself to your business, and be particular about who you hire, the culture in your store. We've talked about this in many of our episodes, that you need to have people that take ownership in your business and understand customer service and what you're trying to accomplish.
We're really proud of that because if you last 30 days with me as an employee, you're going to be there for years and years. And you'd be amazed how many people have thought that an employee was a daughter or my wife. That's really what I want to
There you go.
That's
Absolutely.
Hey, so let me ask you a question then. So one of the audience came into your store. What would they experience? What would that experience be like?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to greet you immediately with, let you know, good morning, good afternoon, how you doing today? We're going to ask them open-ended questions. Not may I help you, but how may I help you? We can teach 16-year-old kids to do that. I know that adults can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of use the Aid Inc. old formula, the old bestseller formula, approach, interview, and demonstrate. In the retail setting, people like my wife, she doesn't want to be helped until she needs help. So you try to be a little more cognizant of that and give people that want space all the space they need. I see a couple of old bastards like you walk in, I'm going to be all over you because you guys want to be sold and you will spend some money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
You're right. You're right. Grandpa's.
We work in threes. I want my people to have, we're simply going to ask you the age, sex of the child, and how much you want to spend. And then we're going to I expect my people to have 3 items that fill those criteria and then be able to do 3 features and benefits on each one of those items that they present.
Beautiful.
Pretty old-fashioned stuff. I built my sales career on 2 great books, The 1-Minute Salesperson, which my dad turned me on to in the 70s, and The Bestseller, which I believe, Jimbo, you turned me on to in the 80s. And it's really about mirroring your customer and treating your customer like a human being.
It's not a secret, is it? It's common
and
sense.
I also use a little Herb Kelleher. I put my employees as a priority before my customers and before money. And because of that, again, people think that most of my employees are family.
That's amazing. That's good, though, Paul. So, what final advice would you offer to these budding entrepreneurs that are watching? Okay. I believe the long hours, the persistence, I believe those points you gave were just outstanding. But any final advice you'd give to budding entrepreneurs or business owners that are watching?
You've got to know your numbers. We haven't talked at all about numbers. I'm not a finance guy. I'm not an accountant. Quite frequently, the nomenclature makes me crazy. My background is hard rock geology, but I grew up in a family business. I may not know finance and the accountants make me crazy, but I know the numbers. I know whether we're making money or not. I know what my fixed costs are. I know what my break-even point is day to day. Most people have no idea about those basic numbers. Stay focused. Don't get caught up in, I don't want to say trends, because if you're in retail, you've got to play trends. But there's fads that I think people can get sucked into, and they're not helpful at all.
Big
Not
difference
helpful
in
at all.
fads to trends, yeah.
Just marketing trends that can take you down real quick.
So you want to stick to your model that's been successful.
Absolutely. And maybe, I don't know if it's right or wrong, I don't spend nearly enough time shopping my competition. I can't tell you the last time I was in a Walmart or a Target. In the modern world, I do, if I'm being presented new product, I may be looking at my laptop and price comparing on Amazon, because you have to. But I really don't focus on what my competition is doing out there. I focus on what I'm
smart,
doing.
Paul.
But just
That's
get
a
up,
very good point.
put one foot in front of the other, and keep swinging. A good example. God, I hate change. You know why I hate change, guys? It's always different. So March 15th, 16th of 2020, we began the lockdown in Lubbock, Texas. And so we had decided we were going to do, business on the curbside. We're going to do deliveries. And the first day we did like $115. And that Christmas, 2 months earlier, my wife had bought me a new tablet. That, you got to understand, people still carry a flip phone, and I'm proud of it. But I sat up in bed the next morning and I said, Franny, you got to teach me about this video conferencing thing. And she picked up her phone and I grabbed my iPad, and man, this is cool. And about that time, I get a message on Facebook and I'm like, I got a video conference this woman. My wife reminds me that I'm still sitting in bed with my shirt off and my hair all, maybe you should wait till you get some clothes on to video conference.
Pretty good.
We got up, we put one foot in front of the other, we kept swinging. Our business grew during COVID. That's also by the grace of God and the wonderful people in Lubbock. Lubbock really supports the home team. They really, and I can't thank them enough.
Very good. Well, Paul, thank you so much for this great episode, and continue good luck to you and your building block store.
Thank you, Jim.
For those of you who have questions for Paul, please go to our bisin30.com. Scroll down to the message section and enter your question. We'll submit those to Paul for his answers and get right back to you. I want to thank our viewers and our listeners.
Thank you, Jimmy. Hey, Paul, I can't tell you how proud I am of you. You know that. And
Thank you, Jim.
I've really enjoyed this. You look darn good. I'm looking at the screen right now. And thank God for Fran. I just want to say thank you so much. And I know that our audience is going to get a lot out of this. So you can watch us, and please give us a thumbs up or a like and subscribe. Now, subscribe doesn't mean a thing other than you'll get notifications of when we drop a new podcast. So it doesn't cost you a penny to subscribe. And you won't be bothered with a lot of emails. So like us on YouTube, like us on Rumble, like us on Spotify. We're also on X, and you'll see Paul on all of those. Paul, may we have your permission to take excerpts from this podcast and put them on social media?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. You have my permission.
Thank you.
Very
And
nice.
if you'd like
Thank you.
something, we'll send you, and you can put them on your social media too. So again, I want to thank you so much. Go to bisin30.com, BIZIN30.com, and look for future guests. I really want to thank you so much. Jimmy.
Good talking to you. God bless.
Pleasure meeting you,
thank
Jim.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks to the audience. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. God bless.